Hi, I'm Miranda, and I'm a mom of 3 little boys, 2 of which have autism. When my oldest was first diagnosed, I didn't know anything about autism. I didn't know what was to come, what was happening, or anything. I was told things like sensory processing and sensory overload, and I had no idea what they were, just what I had read. So I searched the web to see if I could find a video of a child in sensory overload. I couldn't find anything. And since then, I have done so much research so that I could get on their level and understand what they're going through and when. And since April is Autism Awareness Month, I decided to do a 30-day look into my life of having 2 children with autism. And I did this on my Snapchat story, and it was such a hit that I started saving all the videos to put them into one big one to put on here. So if it helps one parent understand what their child's going through, or maybe even someone who wonders if their child needs to be tested and they see similarities, then it was all worth it. So with that, welcome to my life for 30 days. Kids with autism will focus on one subject at a time, and they will stay on that subject for months. That's all they talk about, that's all they think about, everything. And for my oldest right now, that's horror movies. He will sit and draw them, he will sit and make them out of random things that he finds. That's his life right now. Both of my boys have a melatonin deficiency, which means that their brain does not produce enough melatonin for them to fall asleep. So they have to have melatonin. Excuse my face. I was a little emotional because my sister just left, so my makeup's all running. The average 200-pound adult male would need 3 milligrams of melatonin to fall asleep at night. My oldest takes 6. My youngest currently takes 1 milligram, which he needs an increase because he is up a majority of the night. So he has to go to the doctor to get it. My youngest just went to bed now, and he will be up around 2 or 3 in the morning, and he'll be up for the day. When Draven, my oldest, doesn't get enough sleep, he starts having vocal tics, where he'll yell things out randomly. I'm dedicated to this, so at 2 or 3 in the morning, when he is up, I'm going to snap it and show the time on here. Stimming is something that the body and the brain is craving, and if they don't do it, they feel like they're literally crawling out of their skin. Some kids will rock, some kids will spin, some kids will flap their hands, all different sorts of things. My kids do a mixture of it all. Stopping an autistic kid from stimming, no matter how annoying the stim is a very bad idea. Stopping my oldest from stimming sends him into an emotional meltdown. Stopping my youngest from it sends him into a violent rage. Okay, this one's warm. Does that feel better? Yeah. Okay. Sensory processing. It's the way that our brain processes information from things that we see, hear, touch, smell. And we don't think about it because it's something that naturally happens to our body. It naturally balances that out. Like we can smell something and say, ooh, that stinks, or we can hear music from a distance and be okay. But to someone with autism, it's the complete opposite. They can smell something and to them it is so extremely strong they cannot stand it, or the music is just so loud. even though it's so far away. Or the volume on the TV could be very, very low, and to them it hurts their ears because it's so loud because their brain is not processing that correctly. The same thing goes with touch, textures. We feel something and think, oh, that's sticky. To them, it scares them because their brain is not processing how it feels. And the best way to describe that to you, imagine something that you're terrified of. Imagine one of your biggest fears, like maybe spiders or bugs. Imagine touching that, how your body feels. That is them in their everyday life. Everything is a fear. Everything is unknown. Everything is not normal to them the way it is to us. Okay, I'm going to do a little experiment to show you. This is shaving cream, and before Destin started therapy, he was terrified of the touch. He would not touch it. He would scream when he did. Destin, touch the shaving cream. But he's still very helpful.
With my hands?
Okay, the second one was flour and water, and we know how that feels, and he immediately wants to wash his hands. He doesn't not like the way it feels. This one is flour and coffee, so it's a little gritty. He doesn't, see, he can't process how that feels. Okay, yep, you get your treat for playing the game. Do you want to touch this one again?
No. Again. I'll do it.
People always ask me what's the hardest part about having kids with autism. And that is without a doubt sensory overload. And that is also the hardest thing for other people to understand. People see a meltdown and automatically assume that it's bad behavior. I can't tell you how many times I've been out in public and one of my kids have had a meltdown, and I hear people say, oh, if that was my kid, I'd whoop their butt. Sensory overload is when all of the senses in the body, like, explode all at once. Their sight, their hearing, their sense of smell, their sense of touch, everything goes from 0 to 100 in an instant. If anyone has ever had a panic attack, it's similar to that, only intensify that by 10. My oldest will go into what I call an infant type state, where he can't see straight, everything is much louder, he can't talk. Draven, what does it feel like when you have a sensory overload, when you get very, very upset?
Really mad.
You feel really mad?
I don't like everything gets really loud and I just can't see. It makes me really mad and I just yell a lot.
This is a picture that somebody simulated to show what it looks like when you're in a sensory overload.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah. When you're crying, does it show that weird stuff?
No, it doesn't show it for me.
Oh, just with autism kids?
Yep.
Oh.
During a sensory overload, a child loses all control of all of their senses, so they don't know how to act. They scream, they yell, they cry, they get angry. So when people out in public see this, they automatically assume, oh, that kid's having a tantrum. That's a bad kid. And they just don't understand that my child is not acting out against me. My child is acting out against the situation. And every single time that I go in public, especially with my youngest, I end up carrying him out, kicking and screaming, while people just stand and stare. So that's one thing that I wish people would understand, is that this can't be helped, and it does not mean that that's a bad kid or that they're bad parents because their kid is acting like this. And I deal with this every day. especially with my ex-mother-in-law who sits and tells me, excuse my language, that kid needs a good ass whipping. So to all the people who are so judgmental like that and say that I should be spanking my kids when they act that way, I'm sorry, I can't spank the autism out of my child. I just had a really good question, and I want to add it to my story to discuss it. What should you do if you're in public and you see that? If you're in public with your kids, do you discourage them from staring? Or what? And this is why I personally think that autism awareness is very important for people to learn the signs and learn what they're looking at. Because like I told him, I know what I'm looking at when I see a kid acting out in public. I can tell if that's sensory or bad behavior. But for somebody who does not know, they won't be able to tell. So staring, you don't know whether to tell your kids don't stare or not. So I said that I would encourage you to explain to your child that kid might not be able to help it. They might have autism and they can't help how they're acting right now. And although I shouldn't really care what people think, I have this little button that my youngest wears when we go out. It says I have autism and can't always control my behavior. So now that you understand sensory overload, you'll understand what is happening when I put that in my story when my kids are going through it. Everything is literal with them, and there's no such thing as just a joke. So when it comes to TV shows or movies, to them, that's real life. That really happens. Everything you say to them or do to them, they take that to heart, and they don't let it go. They also can't understand other people's emotions by the look on their face or the tone change in their voice. Kids with autism don't like to look you in the face. They don't like to look you in the eyes because they don't understand what you're feeling or what you're thinking. Draven, my 10-year-old, misinterprets my facial expressions all the time, and it gets him upset because he doesn't understand it. He only understands happy and sad. So if I look at him with a plain look on my face, he automatically assumes that I'm mad at him. Okay, I'm going to change the subject for just a minute because I just had a little issue happen, and this is kind of a topic that I was going to cover another day, but I'm going to talk about it now. A lot of children with autism will bolt. They will take off from you without any fear of oncoming traffic or anything. And my youngest was just at his grandma's playing a game, and she called to tell me he wants to go home. Before I could even get my shoes on to go get him, he comes running up the road by himself. She let him go by himself. She lives in that blue house right there, and that road right there is the main road in and out of town. Always busy with. My youngest is 4 years old, and he is the worst at bolting away from me when I take him anywhere. And for the past few months, we've been working in therapy on staying with mom, holding mom's hand, never go on the road by yourself. And I'm calm now, but when I call and yell at her about doing this, her response, well, he needs to learn. This is the issue. People don't understand. They think it's so simple to tell a child something and for them to understand it. Especially my youngest son. He does not understand that. He could have very easily taken off back the other way into the road. Because to him, it's a game. It's fun. When I yell at him and I chase him, that's fun to him. He doesn't realize how dangerous it is. I'll pick back up on the emotional thing in a little bit. My brain is just